At AARP Missouri, we want to support you as you age. But first, you should learn a little more about us. AARP is a nonprofit organization working to help adults 50 plus in Missouri live their lives to the fullest. We advocate for over 700,000 members on important issues such as strengthening Social Security, protecting access to health care, and ensuring everyone has independence and choice as they age. AARP Missouri also offers online tools, resources, and programs you can access right from the comfort of your home. Learn how to protect yourself from fraud and scams with the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Become an active part of AARP Missouri as a virtual volunteer. Find support while caring for a loved one through our caregiving resources. And enjoy a variety of fun virtual events that improve your health and wellness, like our exercise series, Moving It. At AARP Missouri, there's an entire community waiting for you. Learn more about us at aarp.org/mo.
Wouldn't you know it, didn't hit mute. Welcome to AARP Missouri's Brain Matters, done in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association. I'm Sheila Holm. I'm Community Outreach Director for AARP Missouri, based in St. Louis, and I am thrilled to be with you tonight for this presentation. So you got a snapshot of what AARP Missouri is about, but I'll give you a little more details. So bottom line, we're here to make people's lives better who are 50 plus and their families. And we have resources and information online, as the video indicated, at aarp.org/mo. Check it out. You'll find all kinds of great things there. And then if you want to find out about our activities and events, you can go to aarp.org/local. So our efforts to help people live their best lives include a variety of areas. And so we have virtual options like this, and this is really good for those that maybe can't get to an in-person activity, or for caregivers who are have the hardest job in the world. I swear they do. So, and this is an easy way for them to engage with us. And we also have resources to protect yourselves from fraud. Fraud Watch Network was mentioned earlier. We have virtual programs, but we also have in-person shred events that could be of great benefit to you. We also work on livable communities, and that's beyond housing and transportation. We do our Moving It program that we just was spotlighted a little bit ago. We also have this program, like Brain Matters, and then we do have a program that's called Walk with a Doc. That's part of a national program that we do in a couple of our communities. So we hope you take advantage of those resources and check out local offerings as well at aarp.org/local. Want to get that in there for you. And now I'm going to introduce Lydia Hess, Program Manager for the Greater Missouri chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Lydia, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us. I'm glad to be here.
It is, for those that, I don't know how many have been on a previous Brain Matters, but this is our third year of doing Brain Matters with the Alzheimer's Association. And it has just been an amazing program. Someone whose mother was recently, well, probably about 4 years ago, diagnosed with dementia. I learn every session of how I can be a better assistance to my mother. So thank you to the Alzheimer's Association. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to shoot the ball over to Lydia and let her take it from there, and let's get into the meat of the program.
Absolutely. So I would like to share a little bit more about what the Alzheimer's Association does. We are leading the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia. by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. The Alzheimer's Association is a global leader in providing and promoting quality care and support. Every year, millions of individuals and families worldwide connect to our programs and services, all offered free of charge. This includes a robust website at alz.org, our 24/7 helpline, and our education programs, support groups, and early stage programs. These are offered both in person and virtually. Diane, now that we have 3 FDA approved treatments available, our work to help people receive an early and accurate diagnosis is more urgent than ever. So now I would like to introduce our presenters today. First up will be our community educators, Sandy Marshall and Bobby Marshall. Bobby and Sandy are both Navy corpsmen, veterans, and retired teachers. They have been married for 40 years. Together, they have been active as volunteers for the Florida Gulf Coast chapter of the Alzheimer's Association for 14 years and have recently returned to Missouri to be close to the grandchildren. So now they're volunteers for our chapter. Bobby was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's over 9 years ago. So they will be beginning our evening with a condensed version of our Healthy Habits for the Brain and Body education. After Sandy and Bobby speak, we will hear from Dr. Jean Guan. Dr. Guan completed medical school and internal medicine residency at the University of California, San Diego, where she was selected to serve as a chief medical resident before completing a geriatric medicine fellowship. She has been the recipient of a Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program grant and is a member of the American Geriatric Society. She has partnered with the Alzheimer's Association on the Dementia Care Coordination Program for the past 4 years, acting as a champion for the needs of people living with dementia and their caregivers. She is currently working as a primary care geriatrician at the Farrell Duncan Clinic at Cox Health in Springfield, where she also provides geriatric medicine consultations with a focus on memory care. I will now be turning our screen over to Bobby and Sandy Marshall. Dr. Guan will directly follow. Remember, throughout the presentation, you can add your questions to the Q&A, and we will be addressing those at the end. Bobby and Sandy, I'll be turning it over to you now.
All right, let me share our screen here and see if we're going to do this right. All right, did we get it? I think so. Okay.
Can everybody see the screen?
We can see the screen here.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. As Lydia said, I'm Bobby and this is Sandy Marshall. We're now with the Missouri Greater Chapter of Alzheimer's. We did a lot of work while we were still in Florida. I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in 2015. I'm a big advocate for going out and talking about not only what I've been going through, but how my lifestyle changes has helped me. This program is intended for people that want to working on ways to live well. If you, excuse me, I'm sorry. If you have any concerns or living with dementia or know anybody that has dementia, there are other programs available. One of those you can find on alz.org/education or contact your local chapter.
Let's see. Oh, I did wrong. Hang on just a second. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. So the brain is, let's just talk about it first really quick. The brain is the control center of the entire body. It manages everything, including our thoughts and our movements. There are approximately 100 billion nerve cells called neurons in the brain. They're structured like branches of trees, creating a network through which, oh, there we go, pathways through which signals are sent to form memories, thoughts, and feelings.
There we go.
Let's see. I've been out of the classroom apparently 1 month too long.
That's like at the very end.
I know. Here we go. Look. So sorry. All right. The heart and the brain. What you do to protect your heart can also help your brain. And where'd my notes go?
I don't know.
So as a former science teacher, I'm hoping that one of your teachers in the past taught you that your brain and your heart are interconnected. And so if it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. Your brain needs that blood flow because it receives 20 to 25% of the blood from every heartbeat. All right, I'm gonna have to,
I don't know where it went.
here we go. So sorry to take up your time.
Technology works great when it works.
I know, right? When it works, operator error, as my students used to always tell me. And
There you go.
there we go. Nope.
Next.
So what affects our overall health? Am I going? Nope, wrong direction. Ooh. The heart and the brain, as I said, are interconnected. Oh, there we go. Now I'm back on track, maybe. Okay. So what affects our overall health and well-being? There's a ton of factors, right? So we've got our genes and our family history, our environment, and our lifestyle. As we age, it's common for all of us to experience similar changes. Graying hair, we need glasses, wrinkles, but individually we experience different changes. We have some control over some of those factors. Making improvements in those areas could positively affect overall health, even for individuals with family history of issues, poor environmental exposure. And if you weren't so active in your previous years, you can still change that.
As far as I know, I did not have any family history of Alzheimer's or dementia. It was kind of ironic. I think after I got my diagnosis in 2015, I'd come to visit my parents here in Missouri, and I would see them acting some of the way that I had after my diagnosis. But at the time, I thought my lifestyle was pretty healthy. Sandy and I were both teachers. We stayed active in school. We both coached sports. I coached girls golf for 12 or 13 years. We done clubs after school. We stayed active. We'd go to local events, baseball games, hockey, and various other things. So the whole staying active, it kind of threw me off. I thought that was all part of trying to stay healthy and cognitive.
Wrong direction.
There
I
you
know.
go.
So as your healthcare provider, or ask your healthcare provider, what your number should be. Dr. Guan's going to go over a lot of this further, so I'm not going to touch on those in great depth, but just know that your blood pressure, your blood sugar, weight, and cholesterol levels, they're all key parts to your story of your overall health. I need to go the other direction and just remember to go down,
Yeah.
Apparently. So growing research suggests that many factors increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. Many of those increase the cognitive decline and dementia. There's strong evidence that there's a connection between midlife high blood pressure or hypertension and later life dementias. This evidence shows that controlling your blood pressure can have a significant effect on your risk for cognitive decline and possibility of developing Alzheimer's or dementia. If you paid attention to my lesson earlier, we know that good cholesterol is good for your heart, and what's good for your heart is good for your brain. I don't remember if I go up or down.
Yeah.
There we go. So as I said earlier, it's never too late or too early to incorporate healthy habits. Be smoke-free, get quality sleep, take care of your mental health, get moving, eat healthy, challenge yourself, and stay connected. Those are the things that we're going to talk about this evening.
And I've noticed as my disease progresses, especially here as of late, probably the last 8 or 9 months, I'm starting to have insomnia. We go to bed usually around 10 o'clock or so, and then I'll fall asleep, wake up 1 or 2 in the morning for an hour. So I got in the living room or somewhere, that's not to disturb Sandy, and then come back to bed. And then I wind up getting up, trying to do stuff around the house and taking like a 2-hour nap throughout the day. So, you know, I totally understand, try to get as much sleep as you can.
Not only does sleep allow us to rest and recharge, it also affects our ability to maintain healthy blood pressure and control diabetes. And it also affects our mood and our mental health. Inadequate sleep due to conditions like insomnia or sleep apnea can cause problems with memory and thinking. Sleep apnea is a condition in which breathing stops and restarts many times throughout the night. If you have an issue, contact your doctor. Adults should aim for no less than 6 hours of sleep a night. Good luck with that. If you got it, better than me. Of course, sometimes there may be interruptions from others in your home, or noise, or other factors that make sleeping difficult, right? But it's really important to try to improve your quality of sleep when possible.
I know some people need white noise in the background. For me, I've got to have something on as I fall asleep. We have a timer on our TV. We'll go to bed about the same time the news is on, and I'll set the timer for an hour. And I'm out before that, but I have to have something in the background to put me to sleep. So if you need white noise or something like that. Also, if you use your phone or something, make sure you put it out of the way. A lot of people get addicted to the phone. If you put it away, you're not going to stay up night with the screen and going through your chats or Facebook or whatever. Okay, I think.
I know.
Other way.
This one?
Other way.
Other way.
Other way. Keep going.
I'm
There you
going.
go.
There we go. Do you need more blankets or fewer blankets? Bobby gets extra blankets because any woman past menopause, if you keep your thermostat over 68, cheers to you, because it's not at my house. Use a fan for white noise or temperature control. If you use your phone for music, as Bobby said, put it away somewhere where you're not going to be able to get to it. And again, if you have that sleep apnea type issue, contact your doctor. Smoking. If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain, right? I used to tell my students that if you had to learn something or hear something like 7 times in order to remember it. I think we're on 4 right now, maybe. But the benefits of quitting smoking include lower risk of heart attack, stroke, and lung disease, better blood circulation. And as we stated before, that blood circulation is really, really important for the brain. And you don't expose others to that secondhand smoke. If you need help, find support through quit lines, talk with your doctor or another healthcare provider to think of different strategies, maybe a smoking cessation program. Taking care of your mental health. You may have a lot on your plate. We all do. Maybe you care for others, you're juggling a heavy workload, or you're dealing with some unexpected surprises that life throws at you. Pay attention to your stress level and any symptoms of anxiety, depression, or other mental health concerns. Those will affect the health of your brain. Studies have found that regular physical activity decreases stress, increases your ability to manage stress, and leads to better overall mood and better sleep.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, one more.
Now I went down too far.
You have. You shouldn't be here. There.
There?
Yeah.
Find some things that you enjoy. Remember, self-care is not selfish. If you're not okay, you're not going to be okay to help somebody else. Take a nap. Bobby's a champ.
I am. I'm the nap champion.
Yep. Go for a walk. Dance in the kitchen. Sing a song. Read a book. Something, right? Just find something that you can. There's got to be a positive there somewhere. Physical activity, right? Here's number 4. If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. Consistent, vigorous activity or milder activity. There's really not a single recipe for what works best. For most people, any increase in movement is a positive change that can have an impact on your overall health.
And I know now in the summers, when we have eating disease of over 100, it's hard to get outside and do stuff. But while we're in Florida, we play pickleball a little bit, and we've just recently found a facility here that has an indoor pickleball court. So we'll do that. In the spring, we went to the local park. We walked, a mile and a half. I've got a good friend. He knows my disease, and he knows what I need. And he comes by, and we try to play golf once or twice a week. So I try to stay busy, and I know it's hard in the summer, but try to find a little something to do.
Even if you're doing just a chair exercise, as I said, it's any activity is good.
So,
it can feel hard or overwhelming to think about adding any movement or more movement to your already full schedule, but little life changes add up. Research shows that even 20 to 30 minutes of walking a few times a week can have health benefits. You can't go outside because it's too hot. Do a track around your house. Do some chair activities or something. The most important thing is to be as active as you can and do activities that you enjoy so that you continue to do them and you want to do them. As I said, what's active for one is not necessarily what's active for another, but that's a key to continue to do them. Ask friends to go along with you. Make it social. Do something fun. Sometimes it doesn't catch up on the mouse, sorry. We pass this.
one more. Go again. Oh, by the way.
There we go. Overall, healthy eating is huge, right? So I think we're on number 5, maybe. So here's your reminder: if it's good for the heart, it's good for the brain, right? The same is the same is true when it comes to the foods that we eat. Eating a balanced diet can reduce your risk for so many different diseases.
I know in the past, especially when I was working, I get up, have a cup of coffee. I would never have breakfast. I might eat a little my protein bar or something on the way out, but not a good breakfast. But I found after my diagnosis that you have to have a good protein first thing in the morning. So I've changed my diet by doing that, having lunch. We have a full meal in the evening. So, and it's balanced. So it's, I do a lot better than I did when I was working full time.
There's the DASH diet or dietary approaches to stop hypertension, the Mediterranean diet.
That's the one that we tended to go for. We always liked our fish and our fruits and vegetables and our lean meat. So that wasn't hard for us to change. I know a lot of people might have an issue with changing their diet, but the Mediterranean diet for us really worked well.
Yeah, it can reduce the risk of death from heart disease and cancer. It can also possibly reduce the risk of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. The DASH diet, it's flexible, it's a balanced eating plan, and studies show that the DASH diet lowers high blood pressure and improves the blood lipids, those fats in the bloodstream. Mind you, those are just a couple of examples. There's tons. Find a balanced diet for you. I don't know why my mouse doesn't keep catching up. So I'm thinking I'm going to be like 4 or 5 slides ahead. There we go. So looking at it from the add-in perspective is always better than taking away, right? If you're adding something in, it's a reward. And if you take it away, to what?
I'm sorry.
If you take it away, it's always like a punishment, right? So try to, oh, there, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, stay right there. There you go.
So try to add in like fruits and veggies, try to add in cooking from scratch, build your meals around your vegetables and your beans, choose those leaner cuts of meat. Bobby still says everything tastes much better in bacon grease.
Yes, absolutely.
But we don't use it nearly like we used to.
The other way.
I know. I'm getting there.
I know.
The one thing that I would like to say is that, look, there's a lot of ads for vitamins and supplements that will help, but do your research.
Yeah, be aware of all those. When I was first diagnosed, we did a lot of blood work to find out what I needed as far as supplements. I needed to have a lot of vitamin D. Even though I was in Florida in the sunshine, my vitamin D uptake was not what it should have been. I'm taking B12 and a couple other things, but the doctor did blood tests to tell me what I needed to take. So, if you have a questions, please talk to your healthcare provider. Catch up.
I know, now we're gonna be like 7 ahead. Or behind. There I go. Challenging your brain may help lower your risk of cognitive decline. My daughter, our oldest daughter, her favorite science hero, yeah, I did a good job, was Albert Einstein. And he once said that in order to age well, you had to learn something new every day. Keep that brain moving.
This challenging your brain thing, as soon as I was diagnosed, let me back up for a second. I had taught this program in high school for 12 years, I think. And I had kids from freshman year all the way up to senior year. And I could do it with my eyes closed. It was no big deal. I did it. Kids reacted to it well. But my degree was in secondary social studies. So once I got my diagnosis, I made arrangements for somebody to take over that program. And I got back into the classroom. I started teaching U.S. history again to help kind of to stimulate and challenge myself, stuff I hadn't taught in years. So, that was one thing that I did. to get things going.
So cognitive or mental engagement is a term that means keeping our minds active. Anything that uses your mind in challenging ways is a cognitive activity. If you happen to go to Cracker Barrel and they've got that little triangle where you got to move the golf tees around, right? Or the little nail puzzle kind of things, you got to get them off. Anything that's going to challenge your brain is a good activity. It can be learning a new skill, working on a challenging task, or engaging in ongoing learning.
And we have the grandkids over a couple times a week, and our grandson loves to play this game called Sequence. It's kind of a card game and a board game. Check it out. It's fun and it is challenging. So it's something that we enjoy with the grandkids, and it also helps me.
Keeping your mind active forms those new connections, like Bobby going back and teaching the social studies class. He started that once he was diagnosed, and he was able to stay in the classroom and continue teaching for another 5 years after diagnosis. Try taking a class. For those of us that are older, you can always audit a class. You don't have to enroll in the school, right? But as an older generation, we can go in and audit a class and learn something new. Learn a new cooking technique, or even a new, you typically eat an American diet, maybe try cooking some Italian or something.
Our local library, I think every Thursday, starting at 9 in the morning, they have a chess club. Even if you want to learn how to play chess, they have that. So, try something new.
Cognitive engagement encourages the blood flow to the brain, and mentally stimulating activities may possibly maintain or even improve that cognition. Scientists believe that as you use your mind in new and challenging ways, your brain builds new connections to the brain cells. Stay connected. If COVID isolation taught us anything, it taught us that people don't do well when they're isolated. When people feel well connected to others, they tend to make healthier choices and in other parts of their lives.
I saw a huge change in my social connections after this. I mean, I was still teaching. That was the last year I taught high school, and we had to do online classes, and it was daunting on all of us. But me being out of that routine really exacerbated my
Cognitive decline.
Thank you. And then I didn't have that social interaction. It's just me and Sandy. On occasion, our daughter that lives in Florida, her husband would come over for dinner. And once COVID got over, I realized that I had withdrawn from a lot of my friends, not so much one-on-one, but in groups. We'd go out with groups of 10 or 15 people. And I found that I couldn't sit there and be comfortable. I was too anxious. I was trying to follow everybody's conversations and what was going on. So now if we go out and do anything, we usually go out with a couple, no more than probably 4 people. But I mean, that's just what isolation affected me. Now, when I speak about this stuff, it's all for me.
You can always volunteer for a cause that's important to you. Schedule regular phone calls or video chats to keep in touch. We have a friend from the Navy from 38 years ago. Every Saturday morning, 7:30, 8:30 her time, we FaceTime. We've got friends in Alabama that we've made over the years, and they're more family than friends. And we set a designated time to FaceTime with them because they're far away, but that keeps us connected to that group, right?
It says visit friends and family and participate in events in your community. I'm huge on anything I can do with the Alzheimer's or anything like that to share my story and tell how important it is for early detection. The way I look at it, if I've got something to focus on, it helps me. I can go and I can sit in a room full of people and give a class and then take questions and answers. And I can do that because not everybody's talking at once. So get out in your community, and that helps me.
I think we're on number 7. If it's good for your heart, it's good for the brain. Challenge yourself, be smoke free, take care of your mental health, get moving, eat healthy, challenge yourself, stay connected. And if you have any questions at all, there's always the 24-hour helpline. There's all kinds of resources at alz.org. If you go to the communityresourcefinder.org, you can find what's happening in your local area. And if you have any questions, AARP.
No.
If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and we're going to pass it off to Dr. Guan.
Thank you, both Bobby and Sandy, for that excellent presentation. I am going to share my screen if I can figure out how to do that. Give me just a minute here. All right, so this should be pulled up. Maybe, okay, I got a thumbs up. We're good to go. Okay, so I am Dr. Jean Guan. I am a primary care geriatrician here in Springfield, Missouri. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how healthy living can really impact our brain and body. Oh, this is where Sandy was struggling. Hang on. How did you do this? Okay. So the learning objectives for today's talk are to explore the relationship between chronic conditions and cognitive changes. We also want to get a better understanding of primary prevention. Uh-oh. Okay. Also identify the impact of how healthy living can impact our brains and bodies. Before I jump into all of that, though, I think it's really important for us to know what the facts are. So really, why is today's discussion so important in the first place? Well, currently, nearly 7 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. By 2060, this number is projected to double to nearly 14 million. So what can we actively do to try and decrease this progression? The first thing that we need to be aware of and to understand is that Alzheimer's and other dementias are not a normal part of aging. It is a very common myth that Alzheimer's and dementias are just getting older, and that's absolutely not the case. Dementia is a general term that describes problems with thinking and memory that are severe enough to interfere with a person's daily life. And dementia is an umbrella term for a number of very specific diagnoses, of which Alzheimer's is the most common. So that's why we hear a lot of people talking about Alzheimer's in that sort of dementia umbrella. There is unfortunately no cure for Alzheimer's, but there are drug and non-drug options that can help with symptoms and may have the ability to slow disease progression. Because dementia is chronic and progressive, in other words, there's no cure, I think it's important for us to really understand that there are certain behaviors in chronic conditions that may increase our risk of developing dementia. But that also means there are things that we can actively do that may decrease the risk of developing dementia in the first place. And that's really going to be the primary focus of what we're talking about today. So let's talk briefly about what those risk factors for developing dementia are. I think what's important for us to be aware of is that most cases of Alzheimer's and other dementias result from a mix of risk factors. So it's not just one, but it's some combination. And you'll see here listed the 5 major risk factors: age, family history, genetics, modifiable risk factors, and certain medical conditions. Now, those first 3, they're kind of part of what makes us who we are. So we can't really change anything about those, but what we can change are modifiable risk factors and certain medical conditions. So that brings us to this first learning objective, which is to explore the relationship between chronic conditions and cognitive changes. This graph here shows the percentage of patients with dementia who also have an associated risk factor or condition. So you'll see kind of down here at the bottom, the risk factor or condition is listed. And then the percentages here are the percentages of people with dementia who also have this particular risk factor. I first want to draw your attention to the right-hand side of the graph. So these three risk factors are not necessarily chronic medical conditions, but they're those kind of modifiable risk factors that we mentioned earlier. You will see that the most common risk factor is no physical activity. So almost half of people with dementia have no physical activity. So if you're sitting next to someone, look next to you. If both of you have dementia, then one of you is not moving your bodies enough. So that's a very significant amount of people with dementia who don't have physical activity. And that's something we can change. That's something we can do something about. And then the other two I want to draw your attention to are smoking and less than 6 hours of sleep, which Bobby and Sandy talked a little bit about behaviors that we can do to change that. But let's focus, oops, which direction do I go? Okay, let's focus a little bit more on the left-hand side of this graph, which are the chronic conditions that can increase our risk for developing dementia. The most common of these chronic conditions here is hypertension or high blood pressure, followed by obesity and diabetes. I think it's important for us to sort of understand that there are some people who have dementia who actually don't have any of these risk factors. So about a third of people don't have any of these risk factors. So those are the people who really, it's genetics and family history and getting older. Those are what's caused them to develop dementia. But a third of people have at least one of these risk factors, and a third of people actually have two or more. So the majority of people living with dementia do have things that they can actively control to try and either decrease the risk of progression or decrease the risk of developing it in the first place. There are a couple of other conditions that I want to also talk about that are not included on the graph because we just don't have the absolute numbers for it. But traumatic brain injury over the past several years, we have found has a very close association for developing cognitive changes. And also certain sensory changes can increase our risk of developing cognitive changes as well. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the most commonly associated chronic condition, which is hypertension. And I know this feels basic, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So hypertension basically is fancy medical speak for high blood pressure. By age 75, up to 80% of individuals will have been diagnosed with and or treated for hypertension. Up to 80% of people with Alzheimer's have significant vascular pathology in the brain, meaning when we take a look at their brains, we see there are changes that are closely associated with having high blood pressure. And if you look at the science, a hallmark of Alzheimer's is actually the buildup of certain plaques and tangles in the brain. What we found over the last couple of years is that there are people who have these plaques and tangles that actually never develop symptoms of Alzheimer's in the first place. And as we look into these people in more detail, we find that the people who have the plaques and tangles that don't develop Alzheimer's symptoms actually don't have those vascular changes in their brain. So we're getting a better understanding that hypertension is really a very significant risk factors. So as Bobby and Sandy were saying, heart health is brain health, but also is overall health. Obesity is the second most common chronic condition that's associated with dementia. Obesity is defined medically as a BMI or a body mass index of greater than 30, and about 40% of the US population is obese. Obesity has been strongly linked to diabetes, strongly linked to insulin resistance, and strongly linked to poor control of diabetes. And about a quarter of the population age 65 or older does have type 2 diabetes. And because the rates of these are rising so steeply, I think it's important for us to also understand certain behaviors and things we can actively do to try and either prevent us from developing obesity and diabetes or to control obesity or diabetes if we have been diagnosed with these conditions. Traumatic brain injury. So as I mentioned earlier, over the recent years, there's been more information that show an association between traumatic brain injury or TBI and the risk of developing dementia. An estimated 2.5 to 4 million cases of traumatic brain injury occur annually, and it is actually the most common in the oldest and youngest individuals. Falls are actually the leading cause of emergency department visits for those over 65 years old. Risk factors for developing traumatic brain injury are a prior traumatic brain injury or something called an adverse childhood experience. An adverse childhood experience is a potentially traumatic event that occurs during childhood. This event can be witnessed by somebody around the child or can be experienced by the child itself. And these are very, very common. Over 60% of adults have reported experiencing at least one type of adverse childhood experience. And adverse childhood experiences don't only increase your risk of traumatic brain injury, but they actually have been associated with worse health outcomes, increased risk of heart disease, increased risk of diabetes. And we just talked about how heart disease and diabetes have been strongly associated with dementia. The risk of dementia, as I mentioned earlier, does increase as the number of traumatic brain injuries a person experiences increases. The final sort of quote unquote chronic condition that I wanted to mention is sensory impairment. So there are certain age-related sensory impairments or dysfunctions that have been linked to cognitive changes. In particular, there have been some association with hearing changes. So if you have noticed hearing changes, or perhaps those around you have noticed hearing changes, get your hearing checked. See if you would benefit from hearing aids. It's a simple thing. It can make a big difference. Vision changes as well, so get your eyes checked. And there's been some small studies that suggest maybe some changes in smell may also impact changes in cognition. So now that we sort of understand a little bit more the relationship between chronic conditions and cognitive changes, we can start to understand a little bit more the importance of primary prevention. In other words, what we can do to prevent developing these chronic conditions or try to control these chronic conditions. So primary prevention means intervening before health effects or conditions occur. I like to tell my patients that it's kind of like wearing a seatbelt for your health. You do it not because you expect something to happen, but you want to prevent anything bad from happening in the first place. Or, as Ben Franklin said much more eloquently, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So while we have treatments that may slow the progression of cognitive decline, we currently don't have any cure for dementia. So it's important for us to ask ourselves, what steps can we take to reduce the risk of developing dementia or cognitive changes in the first place? And this really goes back to what Bobby and Sandy were talking about, behavior and lifestyle. I cannot stress the importance of these and how impactful they can be for your health. And it's also important to note it's never too late or too early to make any sort of changes. Most importantly, move your body. Remember that no physical activity is the most commonly associated risk factor for dementia. No underlying chronic conditions beat that. It's really lack of physical activity. There have actually been some studies in animals that show the more exercise the animal does, they have better neural repair, they have reduced inflammation, they have improved glucose metabolism, which essentially for us translates into improved diabetes control, and reduced buildup of those plaques in the brain that we can see with Alzheimer's. The general recommended goal is about 150 minutes of aerobic exercise a week. So aerobic exercise basically means cardio, get your heart pumping, get the blood moving. Again, what's good for your heart is good for your brain and also good for your overall health. And if you're not doing anything right now and you don't know where to start, Walk with a Doc, which is a program Diane had mentioned earlier, might be a good place to start. You get your body moving, you can do some of those maybe social interactions. You can ask your doctor or whatever doctor happens to be on that walk questions. So it'd be a nice place to get started. And the other thing as a corollary is to challenge yourself. So exercise your brain, right? Be mindful of the things that you're doing in your free time. Watching TV is really relaxing, but I tell my patients it's kind of like junk food for your brain. What you really want to do is feed your brain healthy things, healthy activities. So, do a puzzle, read a book, engage in activities with others. Those are important things. So give your brain good nutrition. Staying connected, which we talked about earlier, sleeping well, which we also talked about earlier, being smoke-free. Remember that smoking does have an association with dementia as well. And food as medicine. So essentially, we are what we eat, which I'll talk a little bit more about the details of the DASH and the Mediterranean diet here in just a minute. And also protect your head. So remember, TBIs do increase our risk of developing dementia. So avoid falls. We'll talk a little bit about how we can do that. Wear your seatbelt and wear a helmet if you're going to be participating in any kind of contact activities. So I got a little fancy here. I put a little QR code for those of you who are technologically inclined. So if you've got smartphones and you want to pull it out, hopefully that QR code will link you to the NIH website with details on the DASH diet. Primarily here, we really want to focus on eating these things, so healthy things, veggies, fruits, whole grains, etc., and try to limit these. An important hallmark of the DASH diet is to try and limit your sodium intake to about 1,500 milligrams a day. There have been studies showing that limiting sodium to 1,500 milligrams a day has been very important to help lower blood pressure. In fact, some people who have high blood pressure can bring their blood pressure down by almost 10 points by simply following this diet. And then some more details here on the Mediterranean diet. So at every meal, you're wanting to try and get those fresh fruits, fresh veggies, whole grains, extra virgin olive oil, at least 3 servings a week of fish, seafood, nuts, or legumes. So kind of healthy sources of protein. Limit to 1 serving a day of things like poultry, low-fat dairy, or eggs. Again, healthy, but not quite as healthy as those fruits and veggies and whole grains. And really trying to limit to just 1 serving a week of the, we'll say, less healthy things, such as red meats and sweets. And I think what's nice about this Mediterranean diet is it doesn't say take anything away. It just says try and limit and be aware of what you are consuming. And look at places where, as Sandy said, you can maybe add healthier foods. And finally here, I want to talk a little bit about fall prevention. So falls are the leading cause of traumatic brain injury in older adults. People who are 75 years or older are twice as likely to fall. So what can we do to try and prevent that? Well, treat vision impairment. If you can't see well, you're more likely to fall. Wear good footwear, so shoes that are kind of not going to fall off easily, shoes that have a good grip, that type of thing. Modify things in your home. So what do I mean by that? Making sure that you have good lighting. Again, that goes to the vision. Removing trip hazards. So if you have low-lying furniture or if you have rugs or mats, make sure you either remove them or secure them so that they're not going to trip you up. Lower your bed if you've got a high bed. So, just in case you happen to fall out of bed, if you do fall, it's not going to be as impactful. And grab bars in places like the bathroom and on your stairwell and that type of thing. Home modifications can be really important because falls in older adults actually are more likely to occur indoors than outdoors. And change positions slowly. Exercise, again, that goes back to moving your body. So specifically the aerobic exercise, cardio exercise we talked about earlier is good for heart health, but gait training and balance is good for decreasing falls. And so doing a little bit of both is very important. There have been some studies that show that Tai Chi has been a significant reduction for fall risk. And talk to your doctor if they think a referral to physical therapy or maybe medication adjustments might be appropriate to help decrease your personal risk of falls. And then finally, controlling those chronic conditions we talked about, controlling the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the obesity. Even if you've been diagnosed with one of these conditions that increases your risk, keeping them controlled can maybe decrease your risk of either, again, developing dementia or having your dementia progress. So even if you've had these diagnoses, don't sort of despair. I think it's very important for us to know there are always actions that we can take. So talk to your doctor about what your specific goals should be for your blood pressure, for your cholesterol, for your A1C, which is the blood sugar test, and for your weight as well. And finally, making sure that you're treating any sensory impairment, again, especially hearing changes, we know has been associated with developing dementia. So finally, after all this, we're getting to the end. I hope that after we've reviewed the relationship between chronic conditions and cognitive changes, it's helped us get a better understanding of primary prevention and actions that we can personally take, which hopefully has led us to be able to identify the impact of healthy living on our brains and our bodies today. So I will leave you with this final slide. If you remember nothing else from today, I cannot stress this enough. You have control over your health. Take action. It's never too late. It's never too early. And here are places where we can get started. Okay, I will open up for questions, I suppose.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guan, and thank you, Bobby and Sandy. We do have a couple questions in the Q&A, and if anybody else has questions, go ahead and drop those in the Q&A now, and we will answer those as they come in. So the first one is actually for Bobby. Jennifer Huber said, you said once diagnosed, you continued to teach for 5 years. What symptoms did you have, and what tests did you take?
You're on mute, Bobby.
How about now?
We can hear you.
Okay. As I said earlier, I taught this high school program for kids freshman through senior year. So I had them all 4 years. And I started to notice that the kids I had 3 or 4 years, I forget their names, which I thought was kind of odd. Yeah, and then something else I noticed was I'd go in one day to teach a lesson. And I'm like, hey, Marshall, we did that yesterday. So I noticed just some things like that. That was the first indication. Without going too deep into it, we got testing done while we were in Florida. We did a little paper test. I had a thick questionnaire to fill out. It was through
the University of Florida, the University of South Florida, the Johnny Bird Institute, which is an Alzheimer's research facility. My dad had recently passed from Lewy body dementia, and we noticed that the doctor told us there were some signs you missed, and he was showing those signs. And so we thought we'd get a baseline.
And that's exactly what we did. We got a baseline. It involved a questionnaire, some paper tests, and then I did a MRI, right? Not a CT.
The
MRI.
first time was MRI.
Yeah. And after the results came back, we met with the doctor and had the diagnosis, and we made a plan.
Thank you, guys. Dr. Guan, we had a question anonymously. From a doctor's point of view, can you please comment on fish oil supplements?
Yes. So if you had asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said everyone should be on a fish oil supplement. Well, the data we have now has changed. We have found that fish oil supplements are fine. They're not harmful, but if you can get those healthy oils through just eating fish, it is way healthier than doing the supplement, and it is probably more effective than the supplement as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then we have a question. I think this question came in during your presentation, Dr. Guan. It says, what is the test and how far in advance can you test for it?
Okay, I have to be honest. I don't know what test they're referring to. If we can get some clarification, I can try and answer.
Okay, so Sherry, if you have some clarification on the specific test you're asking about, we can help you with that. Just drop that in the Q&A. But Dr. Guan, are there, could you speak a little bit to maybe the different tests that are offered to diagnose Alzheimer's. Are you familiar with those?
Yes. So I will say, first and foremost, Alzheimer's is what we call a clinical diagnosis, meaning there's not one single test, and it really depends on how things go over the long term. And very often we are not able to diagnose, actually, I would say almost never, we are not able to diagnose based on one office visit. It requires a lot of evaluation, a lot of questions, often laboratory testing. We have to rule out certain things. Sometimes imaging is involved. There are some what we call biomarkers where, there's certain types of Alzheimer's or certain types of dementia that may be associated with very specific blood lab results, but it is not all one size fits all. And that data is still very, very early. So it's difficult to answer because there's not a single test. It really is a lot of evaluation.
Yep. I don't know if it's okay to jump in, but Bobby's had 2 blood tests and then all of the various MRIs and PET scans. And it was, I mean, it was not just an immediate diagnosis that he went through. There's a lot.
Perfect. Thank you both. The next question we have, I think this is directed to Bobby. Amber asks, how long did it take a time frame from noticing changes to thinking this might be something serious and I might need to see someone? So you kind of answered from a personal view already, but maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I was kind of fortunate in the respect that after speaking to my father-in-law's physician, he said these were some of the things that you should have looked for when he was in his 50s. And, we all talked like, Bobby's kind of doing that as well. So we kind of had a prompt, I guess, to get checked. I just took missing the kids' names or doing the lesson, as a teacher, it's, you work 20 hours a day, it seems like. So I just thought it was just daily stress. I didn't think anything of it. And I honestly, had it not been for speaking with my father-in-law's physician, I don't know how long I would have waited. But if you're starting to see something that's kind of a pattern, speak to your doctor. Just ask for a baseline. A baseline is not going to hurt anything at all. Look, everybody goes to the doctor every year. They get their PAPs and their mammograms and colonoscopies and prostate, whatever. Why can't we just do a baseline cognitive every year? I'm an advocate for early diagnosis. We caught mine extremely early. I am so grateful. We made a plan, we followed it, and I'm, almost 10 years into it, and I think I function pretty well. All too often, people get diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I kind of relate it to find out you have stage 4 liver cancer or something. It's too late by then. And like the doc said earlier, there's no cure for it. I'm just doing things to help slow the progression down. And that's important.
Yeah, and if you don't mind my jumping in as well, I wanted to echo what Bobby said earlier about, tell your doctor and don't ever be embarrassed to say, hey, I have some concerns about my memory. Could we make an appointment to talk specifically about this? I always tell my patients if they have any concerns to let me know. We can always do a separate appointment. Memory is complicated. Thinking is complicated, and we need to give it the time and the attention that it deserves. So don't ever hesitate to ask specifically for that.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question we have is from Beverly. And Dr. Guan, I'll let you answer this one. Do the over-the-counter products like Nerviva or Prevagen work?
The short answer, no. The data behind it does not support any benefit. Sandy mentioned this briefly in her talk, how, there's a lot of supplements, there's a lot of vitamins. They're heavily, heavily advertised. If they worked, everyone would be on them. That's usually what I tell people.
Okay. Well, that was our last question. So, we can go ahead and begin to wrap it up. Sheila, do you have any last thoughts for us?
If I could get back on camera, here I am. So first off, thank you to the three of you for sharing not only your expertise, but your personal experiences. It is so helpful when people hear your story, your lived experience. Again, whether it's through as a physician or someone living it day to day. So thank you for sharing that. And, I encourage anyone, when my mom was diagnosed, we just noticed something was a little odd. She didn't, but we did. And it's just, making it okay, not really normalizing it, but it's not the end. Okay. It's just a new route. It's a new route for us. So, so thank you to all of you. And thank you, Lydia, for facilitating this part, and Alzheimer's Association for being an amazing partner in this area. And I was blown away, Dr. Guan, with a lot of your stats. I actually wrote them down because it was just tripping me out with some of this stuff. And so anyway, I'm going to digest it a bit more later. But I do want to let everyone know, because we did record this, you will get a link to the recording following this. And you can go back and review it. And you do the QR code. I did the QR code for the DASH diet, so I've got it up on my phone actually. And so you'll be able to reference that as well. So the last thing that I want to share, maybe two. We have 2 more programs that are coming up. And if you go to aarp.org go to Brain Matters, aarp.org/Brain Matters. You'll see the 2 programs. One's on September 26th and one's on November 12th. So check those out and register. Let your friends know, your family know. The second thing, Dr. Guan had mentioned about home modifications. AARP has a free resource that's called the Home Fit Guide. It goes through all of those easy and complicated, but modifications that you can do to your home so you can age safely in your own home or help your loved one age safely in their home. So you can check that out. Just go to aarp.org/homefit and you'll be able to find that. It's free. They'll mail it right to you. So again, I know we're a little bit over, so I'm just going to wrap it tight. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in September. Good night.